There are very few things that shame Kiwis more than visitors getting a raw deal here. Anything that makes them leave God's own with a bad taste in their mouth.
For the past few weeks, I've been investigating a so-called sustainable living project in the Coromandel targeted at young people around the world. They pay thousands of dollars to attend. You, the taxpayers, have shelled out nearly 50 grand too. What people see is a spectacular website. What they get has left many disgusted with their experience of New Zealand. Mr. Traylen, this is Jon Traylen, sustainable living guru. Well, you haven't responded to my calls and we've got a lot of serious questions.
Private property, you don't just enter it without permission.
Well, we've tried to contact you. OK, we are leaving. You've asked us to leave, we will do so. What does he do and why are people so angry about it?
Very disappointed and often extremely angry.
He's giving New Zealand a horrible name. He definitely is not a good representation of what New Zealand is and what the people here are like.
Jon Traylen's left a trail of fury around the Coromandel and around the world. The story begins near Kennedy Bay in the Coromandel bush. It's a beautiful, remote part of the world where, earlier this year, Jon Traylen welcomed the first volunteers to Earthwise Valley. The valley's website paints an idyllic picture of a charitable, volunteer-run, sustainable living project. But this is reality. Piles of what looks like rubbish, dodgy-looking buildings, dodgy-looking facilities. We travelled there to see for ourselves. The local council's concerned about what's going on there. Police have even paid a visit after contact from a worried parent in the US. I had called Jon Traylen. He hadn't responded. The first time I arrived at Earthwise Valley, it was deserted. What a mess. Eventually, I tracked down this man, David Wingate from Glasgow, an expert in sustainable building and one of the first ever volunteers at Earthwise. He was excited at what he saw on the website, paid nearly 8,000 New Zealand dollars to stay for 13 weeks. He left after just 5.
Appalled is the correct word, yes. Oh, well, the website was made out to be some sort of island paradise, you know. There's lots of pictures of happy volunteers picking fresh fruit and veg from the organic gardens, but unfortunately it was basically an empty field. Worse than that, it was an empty field with a pile of junk in the middle of it, with no gardens and no facilities and basically nothing there. The whole place just looked like a junkyard. And I mean, we often referred to it as the junkyard, and we were kind of scorned for that and told not to because it's the resource pile. You know, it's not junk, it's resources.
David says the volunteers confronted Jon Traylen, but nothing changed.
He basically blamed us for expecting too much from him. But the vast majority of us were very disappointed and often extremely angry. Yeah, as for his driving, apparently this is what New Zealanders drive like, or so he says. Extremely fast and quite aggressively and without much concern for safety. It's left me very apprehensive. Certainly the other people who had come here for an experience of a lifetime have gone away with a very different experience from what they expected. Yeah, definitely left a bitter taste in my mouth.
Turns out David is far from the first to have that bitter taste. To find out more, we have to go back in time to Thames in late 2006. That's when Coromandel MP Sandra Gowdy got talking to some young people at a function.
A whole van full of young people were telling me all about their concerns, and it was, you know, I was alarmed, to be quite frank. Natanya, timid...
So alarmed, she arranged for them to swear affidavits about their complaints.
Blatant disrespect for road rules.
Head-on collisions.
Often drives excessively.
Sea kayaking,
almost
horrific
capsized
conditions.
4 different
Jon
times.
took off again and paddled way out ahead.
Horrible experience. Didn't feel safe at all.
Supposed to be an eco-adventure program.
More of a labour camp.
Those allegations were all about this Tararoo Valley Sanctuary, a sustainable living program near Thames run by, yes, Jon Traylen. For 8 years, volunteers from around the world came here, paying as much as $700 or $800 a week.
I was shocked and appalled, actually, because they were having these experiences, which in my book were just totally unacceptable.
Fairgo's tried to contact Jon Traylen many times, as you'll see. We've put all those allegations just quoted to him in writing. Till a few hours ago, he had ignored us.
Those affidavits also raised questions about taxpayer money. Early in 2006, Traylen's trust secured a $120,000 contract with the Ministry of Youth Development to run a program for vulnerable youth. He called it the Conservation Corps. It soon completely collapsed. This is what the ministry told me.
After 2 months, we felt Mr Traylen had misinformed us about his organisation's ability to deliver the programs, and he began to breach some of the contract's terms and conditions. Other serious issues were concerns over vehicle safety. Unwarranted and unregistered vehicles were being used, and a lack of safety gear for building projects.
What the ministry saw was a very impressive application. What it got was, well, we just heard. They cancelled the contract in December 2006, but not before Traylen's trust had received nearly $50,000.
That failed Conservation Corps project was at Traylen's Tararoo Valley Sanctuary, now closed. It's up this bush road out of Thames. It's an astonishing hilltop property looking out over the Firth of Thames. Last year it was sold. When the new owners took over, this is how they found it. A disgusting mess. $20,000 of the purchase price is now being disputed. Ashley Deal from Florida is another caught up in Jon Traylen's mess. We meet her working out in an Auckland gym.
10 reps.
In July, she starts training as a helicopter pilot with the US Navy. Before then, she needed to do a workplace internship to finish her degree.
Lord of the Rings is what got my first interest, but I went online and I did a Google search of international internships, and the website Kiwi Internships popped up.
KiwiInternships.com. It's run by, yes, you guessed it, Jon Traylen. Ashley paid more than 10,000 New Zealand dollars for an unpaid position, plus food, accommodation, other expenses. Do you think you got what you paid for?
Not at all. Not at all.
And this is what made Ashley most angry. A receipt, $3,350, a third of Ashley's fee. It's a so-called donation to Traylen's Earthwise Living Foundation. Now, Ashley knew a donation was part of the deal, but...
I thought it was going to be like $500.
And how did you feel when you discovered this is what you were giving money to?
Completely ripped off. Completely ripped off.
Ashley's now back in Florida. She didn't get a cent back from Jon Traylen. Our thanks to Mark Frankham at the ASB Showgrounds in Auckland for all the help he gave her. We're reporting on complaints about Jon Traylen's Sustainable Living project on the Coromandel. Gordon John didn't seem all that keen to speak to you.
No, and as you saw, he wasn't there when I first visited. Then we got a tip-off he was back at Earthwise Valley. There's no doorbell at Earthwise Valley. Hello, Mr Traylen. But the dogs announced our arrival. Ah, here we go. Mr Traylen, is it? Gordon Harcourt from Fairgate, Mr Traylen.
Hello, how are you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
You haven't responded to my call, so we thought we'd come and say hello.
First of all, this is private property.
Right.
So I'd like you to turn off the camera and then we can have a conversation.
OK, well... He didn't want to speak on camera, we didn't want to stop filming, so that was pretty much that.
I would like you to leave.
Mr Traylen, we've got a lot of questions for you, which you haven't...
And I'll talk to you at some point, but this is not the way to do it.
Well, you haven't responded to my calls, and we've got a lot of serious questions.
Private property, you don't just enter it without permission.
Well, we've tried to contact you. OK, we are leaving. You've asked us to leave. We will do so. We waited outside for Mr Traylen to leave, but he wasn't moving, so we went back to Coromandel town, where the sort of weird fluke Fairgo reporters dream of actually happened. Jon Traylen parked right across the road from us. He'd refused to answer questions at his site. Now we were on public property.
Do you have a business card and I'll
call
you
sure.
later?
Well, I'm going to email you because I've got a series of questions I'd like to send you.
That's great.
For example, about the state of the property, whether you've got resources.
Excuse us.
Where are all your volunteers, Jon? Where have they all gone? Where have all the volunteers gone?
Excuse me. Look, I'll be in touch with you, but this isn't the way to conduct any kind of business.
Well, I would like to say the same to you about the way you conduct your business, Mr Traylen, given the complaints we got going back to 2004. Up till a few hours ago, Jon Traylen had ignored my numerous calls and emails. Then at lunchtime today, we got this 2-page fax from him. Look, in my view, it doesn't answer the many specific questions we send him. But it says TVNZ intends to convey an inaccurate and unfair view.
He says his 2 operations have hosted several hundred people over 10 years, and most have had enjoyable and extremely valuable experiences. He says an occasional ill-meaning person can affect their own experience and that of others.
Now, we take it there that he's referring to David Wingate. In fact, I've spoken to 6 of the 8 volunteers who were there, and 5 are as disgusted as David is. 1 is positive, but even she agrees the website is misleading. He also mentions positive feedback we've received. Now, in the past few days, I've had 3 emails from people claiming to be volunteers at Earthwise and who had a positive experience.
We've put a lot of advice on our website about what you can do to protect yourself from this sort of thing. The main advice is look for the Qual mark. That's the Tourism Quality Assurance Agency, which physically visits more than 2,000 businesses each year. And of course, if you have feedback about Jon Traylen, we want to hear from you. Thanks, Gordon.